Welcome and thanks for joining us. Today we are going to be with Nancy LaRusso as she shares about her book, Grace to Grieve. Nancy had a really difficult journey of learning to lean into God's grace as she experienced numerous deaths of close family members over the years of her lifetime. In episode 2, we will also hear about her journey walking through the loss of her son.
All right. Nancy, welcome. I'm here today with Nancy LaRusso. A very big privilege, very excited about that. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And we are here to talk about your book. So I see you've got a newer looking copy, and I have my ratty copy that I've gone through and underlined, etc. Just a little funny thing. I think I told you this, but what year did your book first come out? Let me ask that.
In 2017.
Okay. So in 2017, I think Harry did an interview with you up on the couch in front of the whole church.
He did.
Yeah. And so I got a book then, and I tried to read it, and I just got through a few chapters, and for whatever reason, it fell off my list. You know how books do. And next thing you know, it's like, I'm not paying attention to it. And I don't know why I picked it back up, actually. But in the last year or so, I picked it back up and I couldn't put it down. And I was like, this is so compelling, so interesting. So your book's called Grace to Grieve. So today we're going to talk about grief. And I'm sure you don't want to be known as a grief expert.
Correct.
But here you are. So when I'm thinking about the story, the first thing I thought of is how I first met you and the history of our church. So I think I first met Vince and Nancy. And so number one, you're married to Vince LaRusso, the very famous Vince LaRusso. Vince is kind of a bigger than life guy, yes?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
And everybody on the hill knows Vince?
They do. They do.
And you guys live on the hill.
We do.
And so Vince LaRusso, and you've 4 children. Tell us about your family just a second.
All right. So Vince and I have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. We both come from a fairly large family, raised Catholic. Both families.
Gotcha.
Were raised Catholic, yes. Came from a family of 5. I come from a family of 8 siblings. We live more in North St. Louis County up there, and he grew up on the hill.
Gotcha. So part of how we know each other is because you and Vince's brother is Joe LaRusso.
Right.
Who became the pastor of Hill of Zion in the 80s. I think around 86 is when Joe took over. And Hill of Zion was a impactful, charismatic church in the region that happened to be at 4646 South Lindbergh, which is where the Gateway House of Prayer is today.
Correct.
And in 2007, 2008, Joe began to feel something shifting. Long story short, Rivers of Life, Hill of Zion became Rivers of Life. Rivers of Life merged with Victory Fellowship, which is the building we're sitting in now, in May of 2008. And that's when I really began to know you and Vince. Now, right before that, you became very famous because of a tragedy that happened when your son Vinny passed away in the end of 2007. And you particularly became noted to me because, and we'll talk about this later, because you shared at your son's funeral something that many people would think an impossible feat. So we're going to get into that. That we're hoping we're recording 2 podcasts today, and we hope that's a major portion of number 2. So in 2008, the 2 churches merge. I get to know Vince and Nancy and just have in the back of my mind about Vinny. But here's another thing I want to say about you and Vince. You're a picture of Hill of Zion Rivers of Life in a unique way, because that church was full of Renauds and LaRussos.
Right.
And you guys were the one Renaud LaRusso marriage that it's interesting to think about. It's kind of a pin that held together a lot of big families that were part of the church.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah. So, yeah. What was it like to have a church where you're related to so many people in the congregation?
I never really looked at it as any different than having other friends and family get-togethers. It was just a natural thing.
But when people talk about church being family, I guess that really was true for you guys.
Yeah, it was. But, we looked at everybody as the family of God. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we got together on holidays, maybe more so than with some of the other ones, but we just worship with everyone.
Wow. That's awesome. And if somebody's watching this and they don't know, Joe LaRusso passed away in 2019. But Joe and I were on staff together as pastors. I never said that I'm one of the pastors of the church. I hope people on the podcast know that. So Joe and I were together from 2008 till 2019. Any event, let's get to our topic. We're here to talk about grief and grieving. And you've written this book that is compelling, and I'm gonna ask you to walk us through some things in your life that explain why you would think you have something to write and put in a book. So I think the story has to start with your mom and dad. So tell us about your folks. Tell us about a little bit of growing up, or the Renaud family, and the first thing that had to do with grief, how that came into your story.
Right. So both of my parents each had 11 siblings.
They both had 11 siblings.
Well, 11 kids. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And during their upbringing, one or two of them would pass away. And so for them, death was a part of life.
Interesting.
They both were raised during the Depression.
Okay.
They both struggled. Their family struggled just to put food on the table for their growing family.
Wow.
Things were not easy. So they learned at an early age that death was a part of life. They learned how to persevere. They knew that life wasn't fair.
Interesting.
But they both, in their own way, had a deep commitment to the Lord. My dad was raised Catholic. My mom was more raised Methodist.
Okay.
She converted when they got married and raised us in a Catholic, church and school.
Okay.
So our background was, you persevere. Life hits you with all kinds of things. It goes on. So prior to my birth, my brother, Bobby died of polio. And it was about 6 months before the vaccine came out.
Okay. So let's unpack that just a little. Polio, so mid-50s.
Yes.
They come out with a vaccine that basically eliminated polio from our world, if you will.
That was in 1955. He died in the summer of 1954.
That is, has got to be a little bit of a painful thing to think about.
Oh, extremely painful. And so at that time, they had 4 small boys, of which Bobby wasn't even 5 years old yet. Just a side note, my mom had planned for the photographer to come take the picture of her 4 boys. At that time, the photographer came to the house.
Yeah. Okay.
She had starched, white shirts for them, waiting. No air conditioning, of course. It's summertime. She's trying to keep them all contained. Hours go by. It turns out that the photographer had forgotten.
Oh, no.
Couldn't make it. She's, devastated, because she took a lot of time to iron these shirts and stuff, as she tells the story. Bobby dies the next week or so. The photographer offered to come back in 2 weeks to take the picture, and Bobby's not there. So it was an act of my mom forcing herself to go through with the picture of the remaining 3 boys, which I still have to this day. It's just, as a reminder.
That is poignant.
As life goes on, as hard as it was for her.
Man, so I remember reading in the book his sickness that led to death was really quick, right?
It was very quick. There are 2 different types of polio, they tell me. One affects limbs, like shortening of the leg, that sort of thing. And his evidently went to the brain. And yeah, within 24 hours, he was gone.
24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So really difficult. And so what you say in your book is that you were born into a family that grief already was a big part of the understanding, more than some families.
Yes. Yeah. So after Bobby passed, the next child was a boy, another boy, Butch,
Oh, Butch Renaud.
Yes, Butch Renaud. Imagine that.
Yes. We love Butch and Lynn here.
That's right.
So yeah, Renaud.
So now they've had 5 boys.
Okay.
My mom gets pregnant again, and 14 months after Butch is me. I'm the first girl.
Okay.
So for her, it's something different, right? After having 5 boys, finally gets her girl. There's another boy and then 2 more girls after that.
Gotcha.
So, but for me, growing up, Bobby was a picture in a frame.
Interesting.
They never talked about him.
They never talked about it.
No, I never remember hearing stories about him. All I knew, other than, I said, "Who's this boy?" "That's your brother." Okay, and then like when it, but at the same time, they got a lot of kids they're raising, right?
Right.
My dad's working 2 jobs to put food on the table.
Okay.
Making a better life for his family than what they were accustomed to. My mom was a hard worker. She was taking in odd jobs to earn money too. So I don't fault them,
Sure.
for not talking about it. It's just a lot of years had passed by the time I'm old enough to ask questions.
But that is one of the things that, how do we talk about grief is one of the things
Right.
that you reference a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people whose strategy is we don't talk about it.
Right. As if it's better, just better just to move on and not talk about it.
And one of the things you're great about saying in your book is that there's really no right or wrong way to grieve.
That's right.
You want to give us a little on that?
Yeah. Well, everyone's so different. And I find, personally, I think it kind of matches your own personality.
Okay.
So if you're not much of a talker,
Yeah.
I think you're going to shut down,
Okay.
which is what I did. All right. Someone that is very extrovert, they want to talk about it.
Gotcha.
And it can get maybe on other people's nerves.
Gotcha.
But that's how you process. You process by verbally speaking it out. Other people process internally, which is what I did. And so people would assume that I was doing okay
Okay.
because I wasn't talking.
Gotcha. Interesting. So what's the next big event in your life that you want to reference that's in the book?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to know that eventually I was old enough to ask my mom questions
Okay.
about Bobby, and it was as if it had happened the week before.
You're kidding.
She could tell me exactly where they were, what time of the clock said, when they went to the hospital, when my dad came home, when they had to pick up, the other.
That's incredible.
From my grandma. Yeah.
So that says that this was seared on her personality,
Yes.
if you will.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, very much so. So I knew it caused me to have this internal conflict of where will I go when I die?
Interesting.
And I think that was part of what led me to salvation as a teenager.
Interesting.
So, you take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I am a teenager. I just turned 19 years old. I'm visiting friends down in Springfield, Missouri, and then coming up to Rolla for our parents' weekend. And I get a phone call that my father has died suddenly of a heart attack.
No warning.
No warning whatsoever.
And he hadn't been ill.
No. My mom said that he had been to the doctor earlier, and I think they were going to do a stress test. But, this is 1975.
Okay.
He was very fit, always exercised every day. He was a letter carrier. Went to work.
He was a letter carrier.
Yes.
That's funny. I think I heard that your husband was a letter carrier for some years.
Yes, he was. It was very ironic, yeah, because he wasn't when I married him, but he became a letter carrier, and
That's
it
interesting.
was a fun connection. Yeah.
So your dad would have been about how old?
He was 54 years old.
54. Really, that's really young.
It is very.
I mean, you and I think that's really young. Some of the young people watching,
Yeah. At 19, I justified it as he was old. It's his time.
Interesting.
That's how I coped.
So give us some of you processing that.
It was tough because this is really the very first death close to me.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, your brother Bobby was this kind of off to the side thing that wasn't talked about.
Right.
And
Right.
This is
And now I'm
the center of your
face.
world.
Right. Right. So I'd have to say, there are 8 kids. Only one was married at the time. The older boys were out of college. Some of us were in school, some not in school. We all just went our separate ways. Rarely did we ever talk to each other about it.
Wow.
And ask, how are you doing? Again, we were all grieving internally.
Okay.
Yeah, we went around the motions. I mean, we got together as a family. We still did things. And the missing seat at the table was obvious, right? But, grief counselors weren't popular then. And
Okay.
and if maybe they were, it might have been looked at as a sign of weakness.
It might have been seen as weak.
Mm-hmm. And no one told me not to cry, but nobody told me it was okay to cry.
Interesting.
And so I thought the best way to do it would be to hold those emotions close to the vest and just persevere.
Wow.
After all, I knew, that's what my parents had done because that's what I had seen. I wasn't there in the initial stages. When Bobby, I wasn't even conceived yet.
Mm-hmm.
So all I knew was that life had gone on, and that's what I needed to do.
And you talk in the book about how that affected you kind of in the moment, in those first weeks or whatever. But then that really affected you for the next period of time then?
Pretty much. Yeah, I always say I could hold it together for 364 days, but whenever Father's Day came around is when I lost it.
Wow.
Because I had never dealt with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were 19. And so then, the next big thing in your life was some schooling, some career, and meeting a guy at the church youth group. What do you want to tell us about that next season?
Yeah, the next season was, really dedicating myself to the Lord and realizing that,
That's awesome.
there is a price to pay after death, and you can choose where you're going to spend it, right? Eternity or not.
Wow.
And so I had given my life to the Lord before,
Okay.
but really was kind of waffling.
Okay.
And this just turned that around.
Really?
Yeah. And I just went 100%.
I'm going to follow God.
Yeah, I'm going to follow God. And
Wow.
so went to a non-denominational church, which is where I met Vince LaRusso.
Okay. Now, was that an early version of Hill of Zion?
Yeah, it was. It's called Hill Fellowship.
Hill Fellowship.
Yeah.
Okay. Hill Fellowship started in the 70s
Yeah, on the hill.
with Bob, what's his?
Bob McKee.
Thank you. And his wife, Ruth.
Right.
who A lot of people knew. Then later,
Yeah.
Bob McKee passed away.
Right.
Ruth remarried Hobart.
Correct.
So I knew her as Ruth Van.
Right.
Okay. So that was the beginning of Hill Fellowship, which became Hill of Zion, that eventually your brother-in-law, Joe, took over. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. That's right.
So early in this church, so this is a new church, the charismatic movement's kind of happening. So there's a lot of vibrant growth going on. And in the midst of it, you meet this guy named Vince.
Vince. And, as kids, young adults do, you start talking about your past and things like that. And I remember when I told him that my dad had passed away, and he got all excited about the scripture that says, that God will be a father to the fatherless.
Interesting.
And I had never heard that scripture before.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that is kind of cool.
That's
And then I started seeing different things happen throughout my life that I felt like God was taking care of me.
That's awesome. So you guys got married, begin to have a family.
Right? Couple of girls, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the next thing that happened that has to do with grieving or grief?
Yeah. It was almost 10 years after my dad passed.
Okay.
And my brother Tom, who at this time we've got, Bobby's died. Then there's Bill, Don, Tom, Butch, Nancy, John, Janet, Joan.
Okay.
So now Bill, Don, Tom. Tom's the third, and he takes his life.
So tell us a little bit about Tom.
Tom was extremely talented, gifted musician, athlete, intellectual,
So
just on the top.
you're painting a picture of a really together or very gifted person.
Very gifted. Very gifted. And he was married with his wife, and they had 3 children.
Okay.
He had recently moved back from Maryland, starting a new job.
So he's in St. Louis now.
He's in St. Louis. He had been questioning. He'd read the Bible from beginning to end, just from an academic standpoint,
Interesting.
not as a spiritual,
All right.
enlightening book kind of thing. He was the only one of remaining 7 of us that hadn't accepted the Lord.
Really?
Yeah, and so we did a lot of praying for him. And just a couple of weeks before this, my mom actually led him to the Lord. And,
That's awesome.
we always say that, he just wasn't patient with himself and had internal conflicts and thought the best would be to end his life.
So, wow. And you all had no clue? I mean, had you ever thought, I'm concerned about the mental health of my brother Tom?
No.
No thought like that.
No. And we were all raised Catholics, suicide is a mortal sin. And so now we're balancing what you've been taught with what does the Word of God say. And I don't believe that's what the Word of God says.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't believe that here, that is a mortal sin.
Yeah. And I say, you really can't rationalize an irrational behavior. You have no idea what's going on in that person's brain.
That's a great sentence. You said you can't rationalize something that's irrational.
Well, we would consider as irrational.
Right.
To them.
Because you're like, why did he do this? I need to know. I need to understand.
Right. As if the why would make sense and would make you feel better. The end game is still the same. But it's like a triple whammy, right? I mean, it's one thing when you have a long-term illness and it's coming.
Okay.
It's another thing when it's a sudden death, like the heart attack like my dad had, right?
Right.
And then it's the other thing when the sudden attack is at the own person's doing. They call that the triple whammy. And so that's what we were dealing with, was a triple whammy.
So talk a little about what that was like for you, what that was like for the family.
Yeah, I think it was difficult for everyone. For me, because I really had undealt with grief from my dad. And so now this is just...
Because it had just been...
kind of put on pause, right?
Interesting.
I'm just persevering. Right, I'm just moving forward.
And you were moving forward in a positive direction with God in your life.
Yeah.
So you think, I'm covering the things I need to be focusing on.
Yeah. So for me, it was almost as if the spirit of suicide had jumped from him to me, in the sense that there was a fear.
Wow.
I was fearful of driving the car. I might run off, down that embankment. I was fearful to walk up a flight of steps. I may jump to my death. I was fearful to even sit in the bathtub. I might drown. I mean, it was an just not a healthy feel
Wow.
at all. I could not sleep. At night, I couldn't wait for the morning to come.
Now, how soon after he died did that begin to happen?
Oh, probably within the first week.
Really?
Yeah,
And okay, and how long did this go on?
months, not for months.
Wow.
So in the beginning, I mean, every day was a cry day, and it was just really, really tough. And I say in the book, at one point my husband said to me, "Okay, I think you've cried enough."
I love that.
And I say to him, "No, I don't think I have."
So that is such a awesome little conversation, and Vince thought he was trying to help you,
He did.
but you had the insight to say, no, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I need
this release. I need to cry. Now, he knew I was battling. And so there'd be times in the middle of the night where I'd have to wake him up for him to pray for me just so I could calm down and rest and go back to sleep.
Wow.
It was very traumatic. Yeah. And I mean, family members knew it. He left early in the morning to go to work,
Sure.
and the girls were still sleeping, but everyone knew I could not be left alone. So my brother John, who didn't live close, would come when he knew Vince was gone at 5:30 in the morning till the girls woke up at 7. He stayed with me, and then he went to work. And he did that every day until I was in a better place.
That's something.
I asked his wife later if she remembered, and she said, yeah. And John never told her why. I mean, he just knew he needed to be there. And that's all she knew, that he was being there.
Now, so we'll talk about John in a little bit, but his wife Margaret is still a part of this church. What that is really impacting. So you really, your brother's suicide really affected you.
Mm-hmm.
You had an awareness of, I need to process this. And then you also had an awareness of, but I'm struggling with a fear that's not healthy.
Right.
Your family, your brother comes to help in a way that is really, that's extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
So where was the breakthrough?
Well, it's that whole spiritual warfare discipline.
Okay.
And I compare it to the discipline of my father. He was a Marine in World War II.
Is that right?
Fought in Guadalcanal.
Oh my goodness.
It was very devastating. Saw a lot of people die. He came back never the same. Although we did not experience.
Of course, you didn't know that. That was years before you were born.
Yeah. Right. And being raised by him, very God-fearing, humble man, hard worker, persevered. We had no idea what he had gone through in the war, right? And so we knew from history, that they were disciplined to do what they needed to do at the time. They continued to fight even when it didn't look like they were winning. Yet history tells us they were ahead of the game, and they, ultimately won.
Yes.
Right? And so, likewise, I had to persevere in the spirit, even when I didn't see myself winning.
Okay. Give us more on that. What does that look like?
So what that looked like, so I knew that I had to spend time in the Word. I would read, and it would mean nothing to me. I mean, because there was just...
Because emotionally,
I couldn't handle it.
You were a wreck.
I'm a wreck, but I'm reading Psalm after Psalm, and I'm like, okay, David is being pursued by Saul, right? I mean, he's seeing no way out, but he's trusting God. And then I get to Psalms 35, contend, O Lord, with those who contend with me.
I love that.
And then all of a sudden it dropped down in my heart, and I felt that God said, I can do this. And so I repeated over and over again, Lord, you contend with those in the spiritual realm that are contending with me.
So
and I trust you for that.
would you say you were contending with a spirit of fear, some kind of,
Yeah. The spirit of fear, yeah, big time.
okay,
Mhm. So,
man,
and then shortly, let's see, within a matter of 3 or 4 months, I get pregnant with my son, Gabe,
is that right?
while I'm in this period,
While in this crisis still.
while I'm in this crisis.
Wow.
And to me, it was the lifesaver
I know you say that in the book.
because I knew I would never do anything to I didn't know it was a boy at the time, to my child.
Okay, so you got this thought, I would never harm my child.
Yes.
So therefore,
I would have to still persevere. And halfway through the pregnancy is when I was just totally released. I don't remember the day. I just remember feeling it's done. It's over.
that's amazing.
And the rest of the pregnancy was fun. I mean, life-giving.
Expectant for
Yeah.
this new joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back for just a second to the Psalms. Because one of the things you point out in your book is that the Word of God deals with every life situation, and it doesn't whitewash anything.
No.
And the Psalms are so real.
Yes.
Every emotion is there,
Mhm.
good and bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So here I'm washing my spirit with the Psalms, not feeling it, but doing it.
Wow.
And that was the spiritual warfare, perseverance that I needed to do to get to the other side.
That's great. That is something. Man, your story is so impacting. Different times I'm sitting here and I'll have goosebumps.
Thank you.
So, okay. So you had this working through your brother's situation. Anything else you want to say about that, Tom's death?
I remember my mom calling up one time just to see how I was doing, kind of thing. And again, I don't say much because I'm not doing all that great, but I don't want her to know that. And she says, I just want you to know how proud I am of you, of all of you kids, for how you've handled this.
Wow.
And I think, how in the world could she be proud of us? We're falling apart, kind of thing. And especially, she's lost a son.
Yeah.
I mean, it's her second son that she's lost.
Yeah.
And in addition to her husband. But again, that was just a testament to, things you happen to you early in life. You learn from it. It makes you stronger and you move on. And so then she was able to give life to us.
Wow. So I can't remember when in the book you talk about this. And so tell me if it would fit now, because you share a story about going with your mom to see your brother Bobby's gravesite.
Yeah, it was my dad's gravesite.
Your dad's gravesite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was years later, like 40 something years later, that I finally realized, you know what? I've never gone.
Wait a minute. You had never been? So obviously you were there when he was buried.
Right.
So 40 years later, you're thinking,
why not?
I've never been back to Dad's gravesite.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it took me a long time to figure out where he was, because it was in a very small Catholic cemetery out in St. Charles, which is where we were living at the time.
Wow.
And by the time I found where it was like the Friday before Memorial Weekend, which was important to me to go on Memorial Day. I called my mom to tell her this is what I was thinking about doing. And she says, oh, I'd like to go with you.
Okay.
And then my younger sister said, oh, yeah, I'd like to go too. So we went out there. Took a while to find this headstone because we didn't know where he was.
So Mom was not regularly going back there either?
No. And afterwards, she told me, I've always wanted to go back, but I didn't want to go by myself.
Interesting.
She was, but I never thought to ask one of your kids to go with me. And so then we felt like, how insensitive could we have been? But, we didn't know, because we were raised, you just move on.
So was it impacting?
It was, in the sense that we were able to honor his memory. And then my mom prayed for his legacy
Mm.
to live on, and children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren,
Interesting.
which it is.
So again, some people would say that you should go back, you shouldn't visit graves. Other people would say you shouldn't, etc.
There's no right or wrong.
There's no right or wrong. So one of the messages from you today about grieving is it's very personal. It's not like anybody else.
Right.
It's your own journey. There's no right or wrong.
That's right.
Okay, good. So what's the next chapter?
Well, after Tom, we kind of move on. Gabe is born.
And this is 80s. Gabe's born in the 80s?
80s.
Yep.
86.
86, okay.
So Tom dies in 85. So 86. Gabe, 2 years later, Vinny's born. And so now, I've got 2 girls that are 7 and 9 and 2 boys that are newborn and not even 2 yet, right? So it was kind of like having 2 different families. And when we go to sporting events for the girls, a lot of people didn't know we had 2 boys. And we go to sporting events eventually for the boys, they didn't know we had 2 girls. I mean, but,
Okay.
Because there was a 5-year break in between.
Yeah,
The last.
right.
So, life is going well. I'm back in the workplace, which was exciting for me. We after homeschooling our kids, then we put them in school. Then we get an opportunity to move out to Salt Lake City, Utah. But right before that, we find out that John has been diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease.
This is your brother, John, the one who, when you were in a crisis after your brother Tom's suicide death,
Yes.
he went this extra mile to really care for his sister. And you, in the book, you talk about you and John were very close growing up.
We were very close. Butch and I were 14 months apart, but 2 years apart in school because of how the birthdays fell.
Gotcha.
John and I were 17 months apart, but only 1 year apart in school.
Okay.
So if you were to divide the 8 kids in half, Butch fell in the top 4.
And
John
they were
and
all
I-
boys.
They were all boys. And so then it was me, John, and then the other 2 girls, Janet and Joan, that were kind of the lower.
And that's how big families do. They kind of have divisions like that. a little
Right.
bit.
Okay. If you're going to do something, you 4 can stay up a little later, you 4 go to bed.
Okay.
Or, that
Yep.
sort of thing.
Right? Those things happen.
Right. As you well know. So, so John and I were very close. We moved, it was my senior year of high school, his junior year, out to St. Charles. And he and I knew no one at the school.
Okay.
We fortunately had lunch together.
Oh, wow.
So we sat together at lunch by ourselves. We had a lot of the same friends because he played soccer and some of my friends, played soccer, and we just did a lot of things together. We worked at the same, evening, weekend place, Mr. Steakhouse out in St. Charles. So we just did
I
everything
loved
together.
Mr. Steakhouse. You used to go there every birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where we worked out. in St.
Okay, and let's take a time out because you mentioned the word soccer. So that's a big deal in the Renaud family.
It is a big deal in the Renaud family.
So, because I know you're currently working on a project about that. So give a commercial or tell a little story. Just give us a minute of what soccer means in the Renaud family.
Well, soccer started out as a way to get, the wiggles out, right? Get all your energy out, whether you're playing it in the basement, breaking, lights in the ceiling or whatever, right? We had the biggest backyard in the neighborhood and all the kids came over and we had our own soccer matches. And of course, I being in the middle of some of the boys, I had to play with them.
Okay.
They had to allow me to. But, soon they outgrew the backyard and there was a big deal at the CYC level, fairly new, not that.
Okay.
And then they had junior cup, junior districts, they called it, which was the prelude to select and clubs soccer that we have today.
Okay.
And then colleges started giving out scholarships,
Okay.
which was a new phenomenon, back then.
And of course, St. Louis has a soccer legacy in some people's mind is really a hub of soccer in the U.S.
That's correct, especially in the late 60s and the 70s.
And
So
Yeah.
during that time period from 1969 to 1978, 79, of the five brothers, I think there were at least 11 national championships shared amongst those five.
Of your five brothers,
My five brothers.
11 national championships at the college level?
Well, it was junior cup and
Okay.
junior varsity and then college level.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at one time, how many brothers were playing collegiate soccer at the same time?
There were four brothers playing at four different universities at the same time. Yes, and so brother against brother quite often.
And many of them got scholarships to do this?
All five got scholarships to soccer. I mean, to college. Tom was academic. The other four were all soccer,
Okay.
which is a big deal from a mailman salary, right, who barely finished 8th or 9th grade.
And so you're working on,
Oh, I'm working on telling their story of what it was like growing up.
and you're hoping that's going to be another book.
It will be another book.
That's exciting.
Mhm.
So let's bring it back to John because, all your brothers, soccer was a big deal. But John then went on to become a college coach.
He did. He worked in admissions at Maryville University. He was the college coach, coach of the year, multiple years, turned that program around. Very good. He did summer camps at Maryville University, coached kids on the side.
So he was a well-known name in the soccer community in St. Louis.
I can still run into people today that remember him.
Wow.
Will tell me a John story.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool.
And then one day you get this phone call,
Yeah, it's like 1998.
98.
Saying, and we knew that he had hurt his hand. We thought playing volleyball, and they had put a splint on it. Just wasn't getting any better. And then through process of elimination, determined that he had Lou Gehrig's disease, which nobody in our family ever had. We'd heard about it, obviously. And they gave him 6 months to 2 years to live at that time.
Okay.
And I remember my mom calling the family together, said, okay, we didn't have time to pray and believe for Tom's life, but we're going to do that for John. And so we did. And
What did that look like?
the prayer time,
Yeah. I mean,
it was,
did you get all together?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Physically, I think it was in Butch's house around the kitchen table.
Wow.
And we all, just prayed up a storm. And of course, the church was believing, with us.
So this is 98 to 2000 and the like.
Yeah.
And so I'm a person in this church who knows of Hill of Zion or Rivers of Life, but just barely. But I heard about this. The whole Christian charismatic community knew you guys were calling out to God for a miracle.
Right. And so was John. He was so at peace with it. He told his daughters, look, I'm going to get healed one way or the other. It's either here on earth or in heaven.
He has how many daughters?
3 daughters. So, and so they tried to live life as close to normal as they could. Believed him for this, making adjustments at work. Eventually, he had to retire from that. Made adjustments in their house. And also during this time is when I accepted a transfer to Salt Lake City. So we moved our family out to Salt Lake City. And so I wouldn't see him as much as I had before, but would hear, how updates were and things like that. And then he and his family came out to visit.
Wow.
They would send their girls out periodically just to stay with us. But when he came out to visit, that's when I really saw, the difference. Because it had been like a year, since I had seen him.
So you could tell
I
the
could tell.
disease is progressing.
Yeah.
He can do less.
But for him to even make the trip was amazing. So now we've got, another year. So we've passed the 2-year mark. We've passed the 3-year mark. We passed the 4-year mark.
Really?
Still believing for a miracle. And then our family, organized by my sister, Joan, primarily did a trip to Florida, as many as us could make it. And I'm in Utah and really couldn't get away much. And Vince couldn't get away and kids. And anyway, my sister called and said, you have to be there. And so I dropped everything and went, which I'm forever grateful that she did that. Because, she's the nurse practitioner. She saw
Okay.
what was happening, and
Gotcha.
knew that it wasn't going to be much longer.
Okay.
So we had a great time with the family, with John.
So how many siblings made that trip?
Most all of them. I think
Okay.
only one didn't.
So you go to Florida together.
Again, time of prayer. That's how we end the days, right?
Okay.
Praying and believing for John's healing.
And so let's put our toe in the water of you're praying for a miracle and you can see medically he's going downhill.
Mm-hmm. And you pray until you get an answer one way or the other. And for us, it was his entry into, heaven. For us, it's a sad day, right? But God is still God.
God is still God. Yeah, such a deep subject. I mean, some would say, and this can sound trite, that for John, there's a win-win. You either get healed here or you get healed and you go to be with the presence of the Lord.
Right.
But that is true for him. But it's a little shallow when the impact of his wife, his children, and the entire family, and then a larger community.
Right. Right. Yeah.
The church community.
The church community, yeah. And I think it was very impressionable around, like his youngest daughter, Amanda, was on a mission trip to Mexico when it happened. She's flying back that day, and no one's saying anything to anyone until she can get home and get the news herself. And so, she's just been on the mission field. And all of the teenagers that are with her, believing with her for the miracle for her dad, come home to his, the announcement of his death. So I think that was tough for a lot of kids that age, my kids included.
Okay.
But, we had to say to him, you know what? We prayed, we believed, because that's what we do, right? We don't know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But God does.
Yeah.
And so we still are going to pray and believe, because in this world you're going to have tribulation.
That's what Jesus said.
Yeah. So why would it be any different? But he gives us the ability to walk through those days if we would just lean into him and let him. So we just moved back from Utah when it happened.
Okay.
I'd been back about a month. Vince was still out in Salt Lake
because of his work or something.
His transfer didn't go through. I've got 4 kids, here, getting the house settled, getting kids ready for school. One just graduated college. Just a lot going on and dealing with this, starting the back new job again. And he dies, and I allow myself the week to grieve, and then I got to move on. Got kids to, get back in school.
So you took a week off school? Off work?
Off work, yeah. And then I'm back in the saddle. And
wow.
And then eventually Vince was able to come home the next month.
So talk about the difference between what happened with Tom and what happened with John. These are both brothers of yours that passed away, but it sounds like your grieving experience was radically different.
It was different. I learned with Tom that life's not fair. Okay.
What a great sentence.
It is. It's not fair, and to think that we can go through life with what is entitled to us by what we have perceived.
I should have this.
I should have this, right?
Yeah.
And it's a promise of God that I'm going to live, victorious. Well, yes and no. I mean, I am victorious in him, but I still have to walk through it. And so I can't control what happens around me, but I can control what happens inside.
Wow. Okay. We're going to say that again, because that is so insightful and important. And so many people, that's a huge life lesson. I cannot control what goes on around me.
Right.
I can't control other people. I have some level of control over some circumstances, but a whole lot of them I can't control whatsoever.
Right.
But I can control how I am going to walk,
right.
what I'm going to believe, what kind of person I'm going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'd had quite a few years between Tom and John to walk out a lot of that in my life.
Yeah.
Whether it's believing for, food on the table, or, when we're out, Ben's lost his job and you have to believe, pay the electric bill. And there are a lot of little things happening along the way that when this next trauma happens, okay, Lord, now I've seen it. It's kind of like by faith. What's your own faith chapter, right? By faith, I didn't like what I went through, but I believed you, right? And you saw me through. By faith, I had kids when people said, why are you having more kids? By faith,
Wow.
I homeschooled when people said, why would you do that?
Yes.
By faith, I went back into the workplace after being a stay-at-home mom. There's just so many things that you can rehearse in your spirit, your own faith chapter, the own
Yes.
Hebrews faith, right?
Yes.
And that's really what you had to do and clean your mind. It's not easy.
Mm.
But again, it's those skills of discipline and perseverance I feel that my parents instilled in us.
Wow. What a gift.
It was a gift. It really was.
Did your kids, how did they process John's passing?
Tough. The quiet one stayed quiet.
You've referenced this.
And the talkers talked, right? It was hard for Vinny because he was at that impressionable age.
He was about how old then?
Let's see. John was in 07, so he was. You put me on the spot here.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. Well, they just come back from the mission trip, so it was. He was 15.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They couldn't believe.
It was 03 when John passed away.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, 03. Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Yeah, and he was, yeah. It's hard because they haven't had the life experiences that I had.
You had all this grief experience.
Mhm.
They hadn't had that.
Which I had to remind myself, I was where they were when my mom said to me, "Oh, I'm so proud of you guys for how you're handling this."
Mm.
Because my mom had had all the grief experiences prior to us. So you do learn from experience. It doesn't necessarily make it easy, but you do know that life goes on, where at sometimes you're not sure if it does. So for them, this was their very first experience of losing someone close.
Okay.
And so, you kind of have to have a little more grace
Yeah.
with that. But he was playing football at the time, and he had that Osgood-Schlatters disease, with your body grows faster than
Okay.
everything catching up to it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it was very painful. Couldn't play. And so I'd say, well, let's just pray. And he says, if God can't heal Uncle John, he's not going to heal me.
Oh, my.
And I said to him, you know what, Vinny, that I understand where you're coming from, but God is still God, and God's in the business of healing. And as long as you're here, we're going to pray for you, and we're going to believe for that.
Wow.
And we did. And within a matter of a week or two, he was back on the field.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, but you have to take those moments
Yes.
and speak it when it happens.
Yeah.
Which I'm not always very good at.
Wow. Yeah. So I kind of want to wrap up this episode. I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
This, and then we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna come back and talk more. But let's talk to me for a second about the chapter of your book. It's Grace to Grieve. What does that title mean?
Well, you think about grace, right? I mean, it's being able to do what you yourself can't do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a gift that God gives you to do that.
Grieving. Grace is a gift
that God gives you to help you through the grieving process.
Okay.
And I just felt like everybody needs grace, right? But up to the point, I still haven't received the grace to totally grieve for all of these deaths so far. I've learned from them. I've gotten better at it. But with John, I think and the reason why I know I didn't, is for some reason, the memories of John were like encapsulated. They were like frozen in time. I couldn't muster up a memory of John.
I'm really talking about this. Good. Please tell us about this.
So it was as if my emotions had shut down, which they did, but also the memory shut down as well. And so I wanted to be able to, there's nothing better than getting a card, sympathy card, and saying, I remember your son that did this, and telling a great story. And it speaks life.
Okay.
Right? Into the person hearing that. And we needed that life, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to be able to do that for his kids. I could not think. Now, we just said, he and I were the closest. We did everything together. We rode bikes. We chased each other. We played dodgeball. We did all these things, but not one memory.
Was this right after his passing?
Yeah.
And then I know this came to an end, but for how long did that last that you felt like, I can't remember things with John?
Over 4 years.
That's remarkable.
And people would say, well, what about? I had nothing.
And you think that was what? That was your body? That was your mind?
It probably was shock maybe in the beginning. I don't know. But again, I think because I didn't allow myself to grieve and for me personally, a lot of it has to do with tears, right? When you cry, you're cleansing. I think you're opening up your heart.
Really?
You're in a much more vulnerable state, right? But that vulnerable state opens up for the grace of God to come in. But when you just stop and just move forward, it leaves little space for God to get in there. And I don't have any teaching or knowledge. I'm just going by what I experienced.
Yeah. Yep. But you believe God gives grace to grieve. You believe grief is necessary, shouldn't be shunned, should be embraced.
Yeah. It should be embraced. Yeah.
Is grief at some level, would you ever say it's a gift, it's a teacher, it's a help? There's things we get from it that when you say there's things we learn from grief that we maybe wouldn't have gotten any other way, and we sometimes would say, I never would have been the person I became unless I had walked through.
Oh yeah, because I needed God, right? People that don't experience traumas, tragedy, or whatever, they're happy-go-lucky. Why would they need God?
Wow.
And I had people tell me that.
Really?
Yeah, and when I try to talk to them about the Lord, and they say, well, you lost people. You had people die. So yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, I needed it. It was my crutch. But I've never really had anything like that, so I don't really need God. Like, you can just stop talking to me about it. And I felt like, I never want to be in a place. If I have to grieve to be that much closer to the Lord, so be it.
Wow.
And that's what really, you talk about walking with God. I walked with God during that time period.
Yeah, sometimes we talk about what are those things we can do to get ourselves closer to God, and we're like, I want to be closer to God. Nobody says, I want to have a trauma and somebody pass away in a horrible grief so I can be closer to God.
No.
And yet,
that was the result.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to see more content from Southgate, head to our YouTube channel, or you can visit us in person on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m.